I want to get you caught up on exactly what we know. Just 2 hours from now, Michael Flynn will go before a federal judge to be sentenced for lying to the FBI back in 2017. It is a crime that could get him up to 5 years in jail. But remember, special counsel Bob Mueller says that after Flynn pleaded guilty and started cooperating with the investigation, he was incredibly valuable. Prosecutors describe Flynn as, quote, one of the few people with long-term and first-hand insight into the events under investigation. And because of that, Mueller ended up recommending that Flynn serve no jail time at all. Think about that, or 6 months at most. But the story, it doesn't end there. Instead of staying quiet, Flynn's lawyers then filed court documents that accused the FBI of bullying the former national security advisor and failing to warn him about the consequences of lying to investigators. Stunning that he didn't know that was a problem. President Trump and his allies have latched onto that, calling it evidence that Michael Flynn was somehow trapped into committing perjury. And it was clearly on the president's mind at 6:30 a.m. this morning when he tweeted this, quote, "Good luck today in court to General Michael Flynn. Will be interesting to see what he had to say, despite tremendous pressure being put on him about Russian collusion in our great and obviously highly successful political campaign. There was no collusion." Those are the words of the president. But then this happened. The special counsel's office says the FBI is not to blame for Flynn's lying, pointing out that he told the same exact lies to White House officials. And here's what former FBI Director Jim Comey had to say about all of this on Monday.
They're up here attacking the FBI's investigation of a guy who pled guilty to lying to the FBI. He should have been warned you shouldn't lie. He should have been told you can have a lawyer. Think of the state of affairs we've ended up in. That's nonsense.
Ready? Pause. I recommend you rewind that and watch it again. Late yesterday, Mueller's team fired back at Flynn by releasing a document that is known as a 302, detailing the FBI's interview with Flynn back in January 2017. And now, while a lot of it is blacked out, the report clearly shows Michael Flynn lied multiple times about conversations he had with then Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak. And that's not all. On Monday, 2 of Flynn's former business associates were charged in an alleged scheme to get a Turkish cleric extradited back to Turkey. Now, Michael Flynn isn't charged, which is noteworthy, but he is accused of working with the men to secretly lobby the United States government. Now, we're going to have to wait and see if any of this plays a role in the judge's decision-making when Flynn is sentenced at 11 o'clock this morning. So I'm with the president on this sentiment. Good luck indeed.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.